A lot of people have been calling for the firing of Dirk Koetter, myself included to a certain degree, and a lot of people feel that he should be retained by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They should keep him. There's a lot of decent reasons for keeping him. There's also a lot of decent reasons for getting rid of him. Let's quickly talk about, and this video is going to be talking about why the Buccaneers will fire Dirk Koetter, because it's almost a certainty at this point that he will be fired. So, I'm going to be looking into the mindset of the owners and stuff like that. So, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. The main reason that people feel that Dirk Koetter shouldn't be fired is because of consistency. If the Buccaneers keep on firing coaches for every 2 seasons, like they've done ever since they fired John Gruden, the max, we've had 4 coaches. The guy who got the most years was Raheem Morris. He got 3. If they keep on firing people, then we're going to end up like the Cleveland Browns. No high-tier coach is going to want to come to us. No high-tier free agents are going to want to come to us. Fair point. But, the Glazers' mindset is, if you show any signs of regression or we feel that we can immediately upgrade from you, we are going to get rid of you. Any signs of regression, any signs. And if our expectations are not met, and you, at least, if you aren't at least slightly below our expectations, then you're getting canned. That's really the mindset that the Glazers have had since they got rid of John Gruden, and it's very evident in the past 4 head coaches. We've had 4 head coaches since John Gruden, and it went Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano, Lovie Smith, Dirk Koetter. Now, all 4 of these guys have shown clear signs of regression, except for Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith went 2-14 and 6-10. If there was ever a guy who deserved a 3rd year, I feel it was Lovie Smith. However, they felt that Jameis Winston's development was through Dirk Koetter, so they got rid of Lovie and kept on Dirk Koetter. However, that's another point against Dirk. The development hasn't exactly been where it was expected to be, so that's kind of another point against Dirk's. So if you want to talk about consistency, the Glazers do think about consistency in a different way, because they want to either, I feel like the Glazers either want their want consistently their expectations to at least be a little underperformed on, or they at least want them to be met or exceeded. You know, in that range. If you very drastically don't meet the Glazers' expectations, you're probably gonna, and it's like your 2nd or 3rd year, you're probably gonna get canned unless they really, really like you and think that they think that you're the guy. It happened with Lovie Smith. It happened with Greg Schiano. It happened with Raheem Morris. The situation with Raheem Morris and Lovie Smith is they showed clear signs of progression, though, to a certain degree. Raheem Morris went 4-12, then 6-10, then 4-12 again, I think. Let me check. Hold on, let me see. You know, 3-13, 10-6, 4-12. So that adds more to the point of the mindset of the Glazers, which is, if the expectations are high and you really, really do just not even come close to meeting those expectations, you're gone, you know? And with Dirk, Dirk's facing the same problem that Raheem Morris faced. He had a good record last year, 9-7. That's another reason people want Dirk to stay on. Well, he had a 9-7 record last year. Glazers don't care. And this isn't from my perspective. This is how I feel. This is how I think the Glazers are perceiving it. Is the Bucs had a 9-7 record last year. I'm sure the Glazers' expectations this year were probably, well, at least 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, or better. You know, and that's fair. That's fair expectations. I get it. Expectations were high, but if the Bucs went 7-9 this year, maybe even 6-10 to a certain degree, it would at least be more likely. If the Bucs went 7-9 this year, would Dirk have been fired? Probably not. But the fact that Dirk so underperformed on the expectations is one of the main reasons he's more than likely, I feel, yes, he's going to be fired. The Glazers, if you really can on their expectations, and if you really drop the ball on their expectations, then you're not going to have a job, you know? And again, with Lovie Smith, I feel Lovie Smith got shafted. Lovie Smith just didn't have a good deal. Like, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for Lovie. I thought he should have had another year, but again, it happened with Greg Schiano, and it happened with Raheem Morris. They didn't meet the Glazers' expectations in terms of, like, they really did drop the ball on them, and they were canned for it. Greg Schiano went 7-9 and then 4-12, gone. You know? So the Glazers' mindsets, they're just as impatient as fans, in my opinion. They want their team, if the team goes 9-7, they're thinking at least 7-9, 8-8. Yeah, and that's not terrible expectations, right? That's not terrible expectations. I remember somebody said, somebody said to me one time, "I'm sorry your expectations were so high." I would have been, listen, obviously if we didn't make the playoffs, I'd be upset. But I wouldn't be as mad with a 7-9 record, an 8-8 record, a 9-7 record. And if we don't make the playoffs, I wouldn't be as mad because at least it shows that there's some consistency with the team. Now, a lot of people compare Dirk Koetter to Ron Rivera, and they actually have almost the identical same record in their first 2 years. The difference being that Ron Rivera showed progression while Dirk Koetter has showed regression in their coaching paths. Ron Rivera consistently made his team better. Dirk Koetter right now, his team is just floored, tanked. You know, he might be 4-12 at the end of the season. We've gone from 9-7 to 4-12. It's another Greg Schiano situation in kind of that regard. Oh, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. I'm sorry. So again, the Glaziers. If you don't meet the Glaziers' expectations, or even if you don't at least underperform a little bit on the Glaziers' expectations, then you're not going to be with the team. Another thing that the Glaziers think of, that I feel that the Glaziers' mentality is that if the Glaziers know that they can immediately bring in somebody who they feel is going to be an upgrade from you, then you're more than likely going to get fired too. Case in point, more recently, Jon Gruden. Jon Gruden is more than likely going to be the next head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I want to say. And obviously the Glaziers feel that he's obviously going to be an upgrade from Dirk Koetter. And obviously he's a Super Bowl, he won our Super Bowl for us, and he actually wasn't that bad of a coach. So I couple that with the expectation of Jon Gruden coming back, as well as Dirk Koetter just completely dropping the ball this year. And that's pretty much the two main things that are going to spell the end of Dirk Koetter, you know? I mean, again, if he was 6-10 at least, 7-9, it wouldn't have been as bad. But he's staring at 4-12 right now. He's staring at 4-12, and that's bad. That's really bad. And there's been regression in the offense to a certain degree. I know that statistically it's not the case. Statistically, the Bucs are actually better on offense technically, but I feel that the offense hasn't gelled that well this year, and it certainly was better. It certainly felt like it was a better offense last year with less weapons. If you guys look back at the roster last year, you would be very surprised at the freaking roster that we had in terms of offense and defense. There's also been regression on defense. A lot of people can blame Mike Smith on that. Well, who brought in Mike Smith? Dirk Koetter brought in Mike Smith, and Dirk Cutter's the one who's always not peddling, he's the guy who trusts Mike Smith. And obviously that trust was misplaced because Mike Smith is awful, you know? So there's just a lot of moving bits and pieces. A lot of it's very small to a certain degree, but a lot of it's big problems. Again, he really did drop the ball in these expectations. And when I say expectations, at least 7-9. I mean, like, I wouldn't have hated 7-9. I wouldn't have. I mean, yes, I would have hated it, but, like, I would have been like, well, I mean, we don't need to fire him, but 4-12? No. No, that's not good. And I think it tells a greater story of the problem that the Glaziers have had since they got rid of Jon Gruden, which is who they hire and the lack of consistency on this team. And I know, obviously, firing your head coach is obviously going to be a lack of consistency, but the Glaziers have not hired solid head coaching candidates, aside from Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was the best head coaching candidate that they hired, and they got rid of him after 2 years when he showed clear progression. Cough, cough. None of my business, though. You bring in guys who don't have a lot of experience. Greg Schiano had no head coaching experience prior to the Buccaneers. Neither did Raheem Morris, and neither did Dirk Koetter. I feel that if the Glaziers hired... When the Glaziers hired a former NFL head coach, look what happened. He showed clear progression. He had 4 more wins than he had in his first year, and they still got rid of him because they thought this hot shot coordinator who will make Jameis Winston great is going to be our answer, and he's going to lead us to a Super Bowl. And they got impatient with Lovie, and it didn't work out. And that's one of the main things with the Glaziers, is they're very impatient, and that is not a good thing. Obviously, us as fans, we're literally the epitome of impatience. not impatientness, but impatience. But still, I mean, the Glazers are thinking like fans, I feel like, and that's not right. They need to hire better people, in my opinion. Former head coaches, I feel, are great candidates for head coaching candidates. We have not had good hires, and it speaks volumes to the Glazers as owners. I feel the Glazers aren't necessarily the best owners in the whole wide world. I don't think they're the worst, but they're not the best. They don't hire the best head coaching candidates. I love Dirk Koetter, but let's be honest. Was he a good head coach hire in terms of his background? Not necessarily. We all like Dirk. We all liked him because he was a very fiery guy to a certain degree. He's not as fiery as John Gruden, but he was the fieriest guy that we've seen in a while. And we all latched onto that, and we all loved him. We called him the Godfather. We were all stick carriers. You know, we thought he would be the guy after a 9-7 season. And he dropped the ball, and John Gruden might be coming back, and you know, it's just not good. And the Glazers are basically as impatient as we are. And it's just not good for Dirk Koetter, and he'll be fired. I know he'll be fired. He'll be fired. Mike Smith will be fired. Honestly, the whole coaching staff's going to be gone, because just the expectations weren't met. And when I say expectations, again, I can't stress this enough. I don't mean 10-6, you know, winning the division. You could have even a little bit performed under expectations, and that would have been fine. A 7-9 record wouldn't have gotten you fired. A 6-10 record probably still wouldn't have gotten you fired unless the Buccaneers were 100% sure that they were going to get John Gruden back. But a 4-12 record, that'll get you fired, man. That'll get you fired big time. Even 5-11 will probably get you fired. So bottom line, Dirk's gone. He's screwed. Will John Gruden come back? I think so. But I'm a John Gruden truther, so don't mind me. So really, why will the Buccaneers fire Dirk Koetter? Well, the mindset of the Glazers is they want consistently good. They lack patience to a certain degree, and they don't hire the right people, and it doesn't work out, and they're almost as impatient as we are as fans, and it shows. And it's just not gonna happen. And I mean, and usually the guys that, yeah, they don't hire the right guys, because the guys that they hire, you know, I feel like they have expectations for these guys to act like former head coaches, and it doesn't happen. And they're like, what? Why aren't you acting like John Gruden? Get out of here. And it just doesn't work. So really, yeah, that's why the Bucs are gonna fire Dirk Koetter. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Let me know why you think the Bucs will either fire Dirk Koetter or keep him. I'd love to hear your opinions. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys.